Hi, this is Jason with Corelight. In this video, we're going to analyze an intrusion using Corelight NDR with CrowdStrike's Next-Gen SIEM. Our investigation begins in the Corelight and CrowdStrike Unified Detections dashboard that I have open here. And I can see the different events we have over time, both for EDR and NDR data. At the top, we have boxes for Falcon indicators by host, by file name. Also, Corelight alerts coming from Suricata, as well as Corelight alerts from the notices and intel files. And as we look at this activity, we notice that this host here, IP-172-31.250-32, has 4 Falcon indicators that are unique that have appeared on this host. And as we look down at the Suricata alerts, we also see some Suricata alerts for a web server. And so we want to dig into this and see what's going on. We can go over to the 3-button icon here to the left of the host name, click on that and pivot to Falcon detections for this host. This brings us to a combined view of all detections for this IP address 172.31.250.32, and they begin with our most recent detection and works our way back to the oldest detection. So these detections end at 14:11 and 59 seconds, and they began down here at 14:08 and 20 seconds. In this case, we have some network activity that has been detected by Corelight. And if I click on this detection, the sidebar expands to give us some additional information about what has been observed here. We can see that this came from the event data set that you can use this in queries, ndr.suricata_corelight. We go down a little bit further, we get into the IP addresses involved in this. So the host that initiated this request is inside of our network at 172.31.250.116, going to 250.32. Destination port was port 80 and a high port for the requesting service. We also have our Corelight UID inside of all of our log files, and this allows you to query using this UID across multiple log files to Corelight observed activity. And we had a request for etc password that was detected in the URI. We go up, we see there's also a request for /etc shadow. So somebody's trying to access information about accounts on the system. This may or may not have been successful. We can query that inside of the HTTP log file to see what the success was there. We see a web shell detection on this host and some other detections for requests for .http password, and then a detection for a suspicious usage of chmod in the URI. And this is concerning because it has the appearance of somebody trying to execute an operating system command using a web application. And then up here, we have our first Falcon detection that occurs at roughly the same time, just a second off from each other as far as the timestamps, where chmod was executed on our host. So let's click into that detection and see what we find here. Our EDR detection shows that the command chmod was executed on this host, setting the execute permissions to linpeas.sh. And if that file name matches with the tool linpeas, what we have here is a potential privilege escalation tool that is on our system. If we scroll up through our detection tree, we can see the operating system command execution comes through dash and ultimately lands underneath the PHP-FPM 8.1 process. So this was executed over our web server process on this host. We continue to go up through our operating system detections, our EDR detections, kind of triaging what we're seeing here. And we run into things changing from dash or bash being executed to a cat command being executed. So let's select on that because that is a little different from what we've been seeing so far, and see what we have here. In this case, cat, which reads through files, is trying to access privileged files, in this case the /etc/shadow file, where password hashes are stored on Linux. We have something executing system information discovery on this host. Let's continue scrolling up, back up our process tree and see where this came from. We've got some find commands, and then we see that this is dropping from the execution of linpeas.sh. So this is collecting information about this host using linpeas.sh. This lines up with what we know of linpeas, a tool used to look for opportunities for privilege escalation. So it appears that we have an exploited system. Now, where did this come from? At this point, we know our host 172.31.250.32 has been compromised, but we don't know about this other host that's also inside of our network. So we want to try and get some more information from our NDR data about where this came from. This dashboard is for IP interrogation that was built on some queries to look for different information about IP addresses. I'll paste in and select the IP address of our compromised system to see who's been talking to this host. And the first box here gives us HTTP activity, and we can see that this internal host ending in .116 has accessed /upload.php. We can see it performing the attempts to access the password and shadow file, and then we see some other operating system commands such as whoami, ls-la listing files inside of the directory where this shell.php is being written. Here's our chmod command that we saw, and linpeas.sh being executed. Now let's see what this IP address is, 172.31.250.116. We will paste that in and add it and apply it to this dashboard. And here we can see where it was the source IP address for this activity to our compromised system, but we also see that it is reaching out to a host on the internet at this IP address on destination port 8888 to a URI named Beacon. And we can see almost 2,000 connections have been made to this URI. Now, this internal host did not have any EDR detections, so we want to check to see if it has a Falcon agent installed on it. We go to the host management page of Falcon. We can add a filter for a local IP address equals, and then the IP address of the server we've observed making these attacks, and apply it. And we see that there are no hosts found with a Falcon agent installed on it at this IP address. Now, this could be as simple as somebody forgot to install EDR on it, and this host has been neglected, or it's some kind of appliance. Regardless, we have malicious activity coming from it to one of our internal web servers. We also see this host reaching out to external infrastructure that we don't own, doing what appears to be command and control beacon behavior. We've been able to begin with some initial EDR and NDR detections, review what has happened on our initial host that we saw the exploitation activity occurring on, pivot to find more information about the IP address doing the attack since it's inside of our network. And we found that this internal host without an EDR agent has a possible command and control implant running on it. This is the power of combining NDR and EDR data together to paint a complete picture of what is occurring inside of our environments.